Okay, well, we're going to get into chapters 9 and 10 of Exodus. So before I get started, I wanted to read something to you. And I think it's interesting because Egypt is getting pummeled because of their ways, because of them not following God and not listening to God. And they're worshiping idols, they're doing things in their own way, and they're not willing to pay. But this is an article that I found on October 11th, just 2 days ago? Here's the heading. Transvestite Lutheran pastor declares the Bible wasn't written for 2024. The transvestite pastor insinuated that the Bible is outdated. It's a female minister in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America who identifies as a man, recently generated controversy by suggesting that gender ideology incompatibility with biblical teaching, particularly about sex, demonstrates a deficit in the Bible. It's hard to relate it to modern day times, says this person, who serves as lead pastor at Hope Lutheran Church in Hollywood, because it wasn't written for 2024, it was written for then. He's not the first, is not the first LGBT activist to insinuate that the Bible teaching on sex and gender is antiquated and malleable. This is going rampant.
Yeah. W.A. Criswell used to call these people leopard theologians. When he was asked what that meant, he said, they believe the Bible is inspired only in spots, and they know which spots.
Yeah, it's great. I like that. I like that. I'm going to read this little last part. It says, the Church of England, the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church, USA, and the United Methodist Church are among the denominations that have ostensibly, I can't say that right now, ostensibly embraced gender ideology and transvestite clergy. Transgenderism doesn't similarly fly in the Catholic Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Southern Baptist Convention, and in other relatively more conservative Christian denominations. Here's what a quote that I wanted to get to. This person says, they say, so when asked their message about people who feel burned by religion, they said, I'm so sorry that the church missed you. I would say specifically to folks of color, to people living with disabilities, people who are LGBTQ, you are good. Nothing is wrong with you. You are so good, and you don't need the church to tell you that. Now, I want to read what the Bible says. Romans 3:10 through 12. As it is written, there is none righteous, not even one. There is none who understands. There is none who seeks after God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. There is none who does good. There is not even one. Psalms 14:1 through 3. The wicked fool says in the heart, there is no God. They act corruptly. They commit abominable deeds. There is no one who does good. Yahweh looks down from heaven upon the sons of man to see if there is anyone who has insight, anyone who seeks after God. They have all turned aside. Altogether they have become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Psalms 53:1 through 3. The wicked fool says in his heart, there is no God. They act corruptly and commit abominable injustice. There is no one who does good. God looks down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there's anyone who has insight. Everyone who has turned back, together they have become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Bible's very clear that no one is good. No one. You, me, pastor, Billy Graham, anybody. So we cannot claim ourselves to be good. And this is a false thing that's going out across our world today because it makes us feel better about ourselves. That we don't need a savior. If we are good, why do we need a savior? We can do it ourselves, kind of a deal. There's only been one good person on this earth, and it's been Jesus, and he's going to come again. Okay? So this whole worldly mentality of good, and I'm doing good, and my good deeds will get me to heaven, every act is worthless apart from God. Okay? So I say all this because we can see America going into this idolatry almost like Egypt. Because Egypt is a picture of the world and what we're going through, what we're about to go through with the rest of the plagues. Okay? So I say that because we are descending as a world into that whole mindset of what's going on, which is why God is wanting to reveal himself through this. And if we're fools to think that he's not going to do this again, you haven't read the whole Bible. He's going to reveal himself again. And what we're going to see through these, a lot of these things in Egypt will happen again in greater ways. When you see when you go through Revelation, when you actually go, is it the bowls, I think it is, they mimic a lot of them. Not every one of them, but they do mimic them. So it's a warning.
This past week, I've done a lot of research on Pope Francis. It's a real character. You know, every time he opens his mouth about it, he calls a press conference and says he didn't mean what he said. But now he does mean what he says. About a year ago, he declared all Muslims to be saved because they worship the same God as we do. In addition to that, he declared that all people are children of God. They asked him if an atheist could be saved, and he said yes if they do good works. Good works. And now his latest thing, he told a group of junior high school people at a Christian junior college last week that there are many different roads to God and that everybody has their road, and he named them. He said the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Buddhists, they all are going to heaven because they all have their road to heaven. He's a universalist.
Yeah. And that's the head of the Catholic Church.
It seems to me that this is the precursor of the world religion that Antichrist is going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So
you would think the business folk behind the Vatican be going, oh, hold on. These people don't need to be Catholic anymore.
No.
You know, and it's, I wasn't going to go there, but I did do quite a bit of research on this and what the rest of the priests and bishops and cardinals were all saying is that because this wasn't in one of those moments of enlightenment from the Pope, therefore it is not canon what he is saying, and so they're explaining away as this does not this doesn't make it canon, does not make this all because he wasn't in that enlightenment state with God. And that's
depends on the hat he's wearing.
I guess I don't know.
It's too tight.
And you know, and I'll say not all Catholics are that way. I love my Catholic family and friends. You know, I do think there are some that are saved. There's just some issues that are going on, just like most denominations. Okay, so the Baptist Church is not, you know, we're not immune to this stuff. So just be on the lookout. The Bible is 100% true. It is relevant yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Amen.
So we can relate to it. It can relate to us. I mean, we need to go to it and not try to make it fit the way we want it to. That's what this world has done. That's why they think it's irrelevant, because they want it to put their lives into it versus you need to take the Bible and put it into your life. And but this is going to happen more and more as time goes on. We're going to look a lot like Egypt, and we're also going to reap the benefits of Egypt, of what Egypt did. Do you want anything else to say? Okay. Well, let's get into chapter 9, because we're going to get through most of the plagues today. That's my goal. At least through 9 of them. We're definitely not going to get into 10, because that's a whole other study on itself. Okay. So would somebody like to read, let's just read 1 through 7. Would somebody like to read that?
Chapter 8?
Chapter 9, I'm sorry. Chapter 9, 1 through 7. Would somebody like to take that?
I'll get it.
Okay.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go in to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and still hold them, behold, the hand of the Lord will fall with a very severe plague upon your livestock that are in the field, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, and the flocks. But the Lord will make distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel shall die. And the Lord set a time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord will do this thing in the land. And the next day the Lord did this thing. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead, But the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go.
So what are some things we can take away from this one?
I think one of the big statements is, it says the Lord, specifically the Lord did this. When we have those moments where we're thinking, man, was this a coincidence? Did this happen in nature? Was it just a really bad time for the Egyptians? God started this way, way back, you know. He saved Moses as a little child. And he worked on him for 80 years. He appeared to him in a burning bush. And he told them he was coming to set them free. But it's easy, I think, in our minds to think, was this just some natural occurrence? Flies, gnats, frogs? No, it was God.
Absolutely. Oh, and you can't make the distinction because the Israelites' animals didn't die. So there was a separation that was allowed. So some died, or some were infected and some were not infected. So it has to be God, or has to be some kind of something else than just nature, because nature does not select like that.
It's another separation.
It is, absolutely. We're seeing that separation, and that separation is getting bigger and bigger as we go along.
Well, it may be, I may do this too much, but I can't help but look at the rockets that fall from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iran into Israel, and no one dies. They'll send 180 rockets. It just seems to me
Ballistic
like
missiles,
this.
by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, ballistic missiles.
ballistic missiles, earth to earth, the worst kind. And there's something wrong with them, you know, they say. They can't explain it. It just seems to me like there is a separation being drawn now in Israel.
Yes.
Oh, it's not just being drawn, it's been drawn.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're seeing it, you know, so it's very prevalent now, and probably more so today than, well, for us, because we see it. The outside world doesn't see that. They don't understand that whole idea, but we do. And we're going to get to that in this whole separation thing here in a little bit. But so why the livestock?
This slide behind you gives it away.
So
Yeah, it was a God to them.
yeah, so livestock was a god. So so this hits them on several ways.
Well, they lost their food source.
Food, it was their wealth, it was their religious, there's religious implications with these animals because they worship them. And so now everything, it's really starting to really impact them personally now on many different levels.
And then from some of the other plagues, I think the stench.
Oh, yeah. So this once thriving community that was really pretty, really, I mean, it was a nice area, green, lush. We're about to get to that one here in a minute. Everything is crumbling around them. Okay?
All the blessings came from God, right? I mean, it was through Joseph, who, you know, he ended up like through because of his plan, the 7 years of famine, put so much power in Pharaoh's hands with all the livestock that people were trading for grain, all their land. So this was a great accumulation of wealth that God gave them. Now he's taking it away.
Yeah.
Punishment.
No, you're absolutely right. That's why the covenant is still intact. Those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. We're seeing that intact right here. Still today, we're going to see that. So this one did attack. So this is the god of Hathor, the goddess of love and protection. Sometimes she's, depicted like this, sometimes with the face of an animal. There's some stones, there are some relics that were actually unearthed. Here's some other ones that were done. I mean, she's connected to the livestock, which is showing her the lifeblood is coming through the animals, which is why she's sitting there drinking from the udder. It was a big deal to them. So the sheer fact that it's impacting these animals was a big deal. The other one that it could have also been is Nevis, the sacred bull deity. So you'll see him with a bull face, and so forth. So there's several gods that are kind of impacted by this. The other thing is it impacted their farming. It impacted their transportation. I mean, this was a pretty big one up to date. Not saying the other ones weren't, because those other ones were nasty. But this livestock one was a big deal. Okay, I mean, they're all big deals, so don't get me wrong, but they're getting increasingly more as we go along.
It's very interesting to me that Pharaoh investigated. So he's got people out looking around. He's trying to figure out if this is really true. And he finds out that it is, because he's got the best people in the country to go find that out. And yet he guarded his life.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I do found that he's, I need y'all to go out there and look at the Israelites, see, make sure they're not done. So, at least he's starting to look and see. But again, his heart was hardened, and he didn't let the people go. So the story continues. Anything else within that one before we move on? That was the 5th plague. All right, let's get to the 6th plague. Let's read 8 through 12. Anybody want to read that one?
I will.
Oh, okay.
Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take handfuls of soot from a furnace and have Moses toss it into the air in the presence of Pharaoh. It will become fine dust over the whole land of Egypt, and festering boils will break out on people, and animals throughout the land. So they took the soot from the furnace and stood before Pharaoh. Moses tossed it into the air, and festering boils broke out on people and animals. The magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils that were on them and on all the Egyptians. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said to Moses.
Okay, what do we take out of this one?
It's getting personal.
Oh, it's now, it is attacking them now. Skin diseases. Not quite death, though. What else? We know this isn't natural, because how did it occur? He threw soot. He took soot and was like, and then all of a sudden it just starts infecting the whole area. That's not how these things happen. Okay, so this is not a natural event. Don't let anyone try to explain it away as that, because you do have people that will try to do that. It becomes fine dust all over the Egypt. It will become boils and break out with sores. What's very interesting to me, so when we get here, so this is the god, if we associate it to one of them, is Imhotep, the god of medicine, guardian of healing and science. He couldn't stop this. What's very interesting to me is whenever they dug out, because Thutmose II was the pharaoh of this area, what most people believe. Now, it's debated, I get that. But here's what I find very interesting. When they dug him up, he had sores on his face, on his skin. Very interesting to me. So there could possibly be evidence of this when they pulled him up. Again, it's mummification. I don't know. I'm not a science in this, but this is what some people have claimed. Okay? So could there possibly be evidence of this? Absolutely, there could be. Okay? So anyway, this is the third one of the second set. Remember, the third one that always comes, there is no warning. God just says, Moses, Aaron, this is what you're going to do, because they didn't do it. So all of a sudden now this happens. What was Pharaoh's response? I find it interesting. What was the magician's response?
They weren't even able to come out.
They could not stand before Moses because of the boils. So now, not only because they used to be able to do what Moses and them do, now they're impacted and they can't even do anything about it now. So they're kind of getting to that understanding.
It's interesting, it says animals. So we know it's not livestock because those are all dead. So it's probably like cats, which are also a god.
Oh, interesting. That's good. Nice. So, anyway, so Pharaoh's heart is still hardened. This is not a surprise. God said this was going to happen. Okay. Here's what I find interesting. If a person continues to harden their heart to God, God will then harden it further. That's a hard statement to take in. God will give you exactly what you want. If you don't want to believe in him, he's like, that's fine. I still love you, but I'm going to let you go down that path. I love you that much because I'm not going to make you love me. But if you continue going down this path, your heart's just going to become harder. And I'm going to let it become harder. And I might even help it become harder. And there may be a point in time where you may not even be able to come back to me.
I think it's the one thing humans can actually have to give God back is their free will. It's the only thing. It's not impressed with our talents, our gifts, our abilities. He gave those to us. The one thing that we can give him back is our free will.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important.
The one thing I will say, what you're talking about is, as the church, we got to remember that God chose to harden Pharaoh's heart. You know, that wasn't us or somehow our involvement there, but we got to remember that a lot of times we don't know what God is going to do with that person. And I mean, I see testimony after testimony. I mean, you can see on YouTube these atheists who are, you know, satanic coming to Christ, you know, or I mean, these prisoners here I was talking with yesterday. I mean, saw a guy, I can't tell you how many scars. He was trying to kill himself so many times. You know, he came to Christ, you know, in his testimony. And I'm just saying, we should not give up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm just making that clear because we can see a hard case in somebody and going, and
They're gone. Yeah.
and they're gone, but you don't know.
Absolutely not. And I am not saying we will ever know when that point crosses somebody as far as being gone, because God, as he says, forgive 70 times 7, which is just, it's not a number. We don't have to keep track of how many times we forgive. You forgive and you keep trying, you know, so you're right. And what's funny is I'm seeing a lot more videos about people, of atheists or satanic worshipers coming to Jesus now more than I've ever seen it. So there is a movement. God is moving in ways that are bringing in some of those hardest people who have pushed God so hard. Man, they are going to be so on fire for him and doing things for him that like we've never seen before. They understand a side of the spiritual realm that we have no idea on.
You know, Elon Musk finally admitted, I don't know, it's been probably 6 months, maybe a year, somebody asked him if he was a Christian, and he said yes, in a very kind of, well, okay, I guess yeah, kind of how he is. But he did that. And then you've got Richard Brandt, you've got all these people who are brilliant, intellectual people that are coming to Christ publicly in front of people that they have led the other way. You're beginning to see that. And I just want to go back to the dust in the air. Let me just say this. COVID-19. I mean, something about COVID is they've never proven what caused it. They can't prove how to take it away. Got all these doctors saying that it's okay. We've got doctors who try to identify the basis for it. Who knows? Maybe God is beginning to kind of open the door a little bit toward what's going to happen in the future. Could still be 10,000 years before he comes, or 2 weeks. But that's a strange event in a world where we have so much science and so much medicine, and they can't figure it out still.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. And God will use natural man to do things too, just their hearts. So it doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of thing. He's going to let the hearts of man do what they do, and they're evil. So, anything else on the boils? Okay, the second set is done. We're getting into the third set of the plagues here, and this section is a little longer. 13, I know it's a lot, but we'll take it in chunks. Let's read 13 through 21. Anybody want to read that one? Chapter 9, 13 through 21. Okay.
And the Lord said to Moses, rise up early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh and say to him, thus says the Lord, the God of Hebrews, let my people go that they may serve me. For this time I will send all my plagues on you yourself and on your servants and your people, so that you may know that there is none like you in all the earth. For by now I could have put out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. But for this purpose I have raised you up, to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. You are still exalting yourself against my people, and will not let them go. Behold, about this time tomorrow I will cause heavy hail to fall, such as never been in Egypt from the day it was founded until now. Now therefore sin, get your livestock and all that you have in the field, and to save shelter, for every man and beast that is in the field and is not brought home will die when hail falls on them. Then whoever feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh, hurried his slaves and his livestock into houses. But whoever did not pay attention to the word of the Lord left his slaves and his livestock in the field.
Yeah, we'll just stop there for a second. So what's different about this one?
He gives them an opportunity for a way out.
Yeah, this time, right now, he's giving them an option. He's like, here's what I'm going to do for you. If you believe me, you need to take all your livestock and all your people, and you need to move them inside. If you don't believe me, don't do anything. But whoever's left outside, they're going to get hailed on, and it's not going to be good. So for those that are starting to understand what Moses and Aaron and Yahweh are doing, they're kind of getting their, because there are some people who have been going to Pharaoh going, what is going on here? Because we've started to see that transformation in some people, even in the servants there. They're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Even some of the magicians are starting to kind of turn. You know, they're understanding this. So God is saying, for anybody who's willing, who believes me, do this. You will be saved. You know, and so I find it interesting that he gives them an option.
Did you study verse 14? It says, for this time I will send all my plagues on you yourself, he's talking to Pharaoh, and on your servants and your people, so that you may know that there's none like me in all the earth.
Where are you thinking?
I don't know, I just want to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I'm one of those. If you have a question and you don't have a solution, I'm not going to listen to you.
I don't have a solution, but it's interesting the words. I didn't know someone had different translations. It's, for this time I will send all my plagues on you yourself. Does this imply, my question is, does this imply that the rest of the plagues, for example, like the gnats, he didn't have gnats, or he didn't have flies, which I don't know if I believe that.
Mine says the full force of my plagues against you.
I will send all my plagues against your heart and amongst your servants and your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't go into that. I didn't see anything with all the many things that I've read on this. I don't know.
The only reason why is that, unless I'm mistaken here, this is the first plague that, correct me if I'm wrong, that human life is in jeopardy, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
I mean, the other ones, maybe that's.
I mean, it's the other ones probably could have had some indirect death in their things, but this will be the first direct killing of people.
Now, this is a slightly different translation. And it comes in verse 14. Talks about the plague in full force, and on your servants and on your people, so that you may know without any doubt and acknowledge that there is no one like me. So
Without any doubt. So God, I mean, through this one, he's actually making it very clear one of the reasons why he is doing all of this. There is no doubt who he is. And he's making sure they understand that. He goes, and I'm going to put it upon you that there's no questioning in your mind who's doing this. That was the whole purpose of this. Now, he's trying to get his people out. That's another purpose. There are many purposes through this. But here he's telling Pharaoh and them, everyone is going to know there's no one like me.
Including you, Pharaoh.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that one. Absolutely.
It also could be, because if you look at the word, yourself, it's translated as your heart, right? So, and Pharaoh was directly related to, people thought that he had power through the gods over livestock and everything like that. And so it could be like all the people are going to be looking at him as hey, this is on you, dude, right? And so that could be something that the text is trying to explain.
Yeah. Well, and here's something else. I mean, I did look up the word heart. So I did look at that because, I was like, what's going on here? And it's not his beating heart. The word is leb or labe. And it's actually, it's the word they used for your inner self, your mind. It's where intellect, conscious emotions, will, and a sense of self comes from. So he's giving them that conscious of, this is who you're going to know that there is something different about me than about this.
Talk about that sphere of influence, though. We were just talking about how, certain people, just because of the life they live and the things they've been involved in, when they do get saved, they have such an incredible impact because people see such a dramatic change in their lives. But Pharaoh, for this time, even if Pharaoh doesn't change, he's giving the Egyptians the same opportunities that his people have been protected from. So when they do recognize, let's just say, they think Israel's protected for whatever reasons, right? I mean, they're Egyptians, they believe in all sorts of weird stuff. They may not necessarily give credit to the God where it was, but when somebody in their sphere says, well, you know what? I think I'm going to roll with the Israelites over here and see what happens, and then they're protected. Their sphere of influence is now to the next Egyptian who didn't.
Yeah.
And so God's extending that level of mercy based on personal decisions now versus universally applying some type of punishment to draw them near.
That's
so
good.
He's parsing it out based on mercy.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. And I also find it very interesting that in this section that God even shares with Pharaoh, that had I wanted you dead, you would have been dead and all your people at this point. He goes, I could have inflicted you with just like that. He goes, but I've spared your life until now. What's going on? So he's even letting him know that I am over you. He's trying to plant that seed, letting him know, and trying to get through his head. I'm bigger than you, dude. And Pharaoh's not.
He's killing people. There's an intentional intentionally causing their death. And I have a very good friend who became a well-known judge who lived on a farm, grew up on a farm in New Mexico. And he told me that when he was out in the field one day, the hail gets to a certain point in size where it no longer circulates around, it develops edges. And you gotta climb under a cow if you're out in the field or something, or you're gonna die, it'll kill you. So this wrathful sense of God saying, okay, I'm at the point where I'm going to kill some of you, Pharaoh, so that he's really getting intentional.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what's the biggest hail that y'all have been involved in? Have you seen?
Last year,
You, personally?
it hailed probably baseball size for 20 minutes around where we live. I've never seen it hail. I mean, I've seen it hail that big, but not around here. I mean, we had to get a new roof and all our neighbors, as far as you can see.
That's baseball size.
Yeah, I know it's bigger.
Yeah.
One time I was traveling through Illinois, and I saw this path that was probably 100 yards wide as far as I could see, and all the corn was laying on the ground from a hailstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Does that much damage?
It does a ton of damage.
Revelation says during the tribulation we're going to have 100 pounds.
100 pounds. The biggest ones I've seen that I've actually was in the middle of, it was about this size, bigger than a softball. And luckily I was parked underneath a bridge, because the truck that I was in would have got, I felt sorry for everybody else who was on the highway, but the truck got damaged just from it bouncing and hitting the truck. And then it was just covered with these huge blocks of ice that were just, it was probably the one time I was scared, being any kind of a storm like that. And I'm sitting here,
Where was that at?
in Fort Worth. That was during Mayfest one year, if you remember. They were having Mayfest.
I remember that one. Yeah, that's the one
I was right in the middle of right downtown Fort Worth when that happened. And so I'm going through, and I'm thinking about that when I'm going, I don't want to be in a hailstorm at all, especially something like this. A member of our church in Carrollton several years ago, we had a hailstorm. He has solar panels on his house. He had a hail go through the solar panel, through his roof, and right into his living room. So, yeah, if God wants to do so, he's going to make things, he's going to He's going to do what he wants to do to get attention. Now, I don't think that was God, but that's nature. This is God moving. Okay? So he's trying to warn them, guys, this is not going to be good. Take cover. Protect your animals. I'm warning you now. Okay?
But he's also saying, hey, for you folks in the future in 2024 and beyond, yeah, I did it then, and I can do it now. Think
He
of
is
me
doing
as
it
the-
now.
Think of me as the God who can do it anytime. Don't believe these priests who say, you know, there's all that stuff. The reality of what he did is something that should really trouble us.
Yeah, and he's already given us warnings.
I don't think that's a coincidence. We've had 3 hurricanes when we are allowing people, thousands and tens of thousands in the street to express anti-Semitism, and we have an administration that talks about we're behind Israel, but doing everything they can to force Israel into appeasement instead of victory.
Yeah.
God's not pleased with that.
No, he's not.
And half the country is voting to, or may vote, to elect someone who kills babies.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so as Christians, you know, that's why we need to understand the ways of God. And we need to make sure that we are under his authority when we go vote. It's not our own ideas and our own, this is what I feel better about because of this what it is. It's not about our feelings. It's about what the ways that God has put into motion, and that should be our hand as we extend it out to this nation, to this world. And Israel is one of those. He's already said this is what's going to happen. Who supports Israel? Who doesn't? I'm going to back that person. Okay, who supports life? Who doesn't support life? And then once you start putting and testing and putting the stacks on, you'll finally get to an idea of which one. Now, I'm not saying they're all good people. I am nowhere saying that. But that's all we can test it on is what are God's ways versus man's ways. So, not to get political, but that's how, I mean, if anybody asks me, that's what I tell them. That's how I do it.
Well,
Okay.
if you look at Revelation, the harlot, I mean, the seductive lies of people who do not follow God, that's one of the most powerful things that happens toward the end of time. And I think we're beginning to see that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
I got one thing. So when you read this, it seems like they're one right after the other, but they've had time to replenish their livestock evidently. So is this maybe more extended?
So, we don't know the full capacity of the previous one if they all died.
It said they all died.
Did it say they all? I mean,
It said all of them. I wonder if they had time to replenish it.
All the livestock of the Egyptians died.
Maybe they bought some from the Israelites.
That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
verse 6.
Yeah.
Or confiscated.
Right. They're
So it's
the
like
slaves
taking
in
home a
this
new car,
period.
right?
Or like some, you know. laying
okay,
around.
yeah. Well, and that's when, yeah, that's right. And so some people believe this is very consecutive. And I've seen one of them that says it was all this happened within 40 days. I can't buy that. Some of them will say it's within a couple months. The majority of people say this was like 9 months, maybe to even a year has passed through these times. We don't know this, but we do know enough has passed in order for things to transpire, maybe give them something to think about and all that. So that's why I think it's more of a longer time period. Yeah, so they've had time to do that. Now, I don't know. Well, the one thing, though, that you can really kind of glean from this, the very first set probably had a lot more time between them, and it's very possible they could be getting shorter in time in between them. Yeah, because the Israelites could have blessed them with more cattle if that was the case, or got new ones, or maybe the ones that were saved, or they bought them and then, because there's so much going on. But when we get to the locusts, because we know the locusts happened pretty soon after the hail, because it says whatever the hail didn't destroy, the locusts do. So that was pretty quick afterwards. So, which would make sense if you put Revelation in time, because it even says as time goes on, things are going to happen more quickly, like the birth pains are going to happen. So it's possible that could have happened. Again, speculation, we have no idea.
Well, we also know that, like, in verse 31, it says the flax and the barley were struck down. Let's see, but the wheat and the emmer,
Hadn't flowered yet.
type of wheat, I guess, were not struck down, for they are late in coming. So, this took place over some period of time, and there's going to be more crops, but only certain ones were affected that were growing right then.
So, no, very possible. So, yes, I don't know. Okay, so timing wise.
Like Egypt's 2020. Over and over.
Absolutely. Let's read 22 through 26. Would you want to read that one, Dr. Reagan? 22 through 26.
22.
Chapter.
All right. Now Yahweh said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward the sky, that hail may fall on all the land of Egypt, on man and on beast, and on every plant of the field throughout the land of Egypt. Moses stretched out his staff toward the sky, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail and fire ran down to the earth. And the Lamb and Yahweh rained a hail on the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire flashing continually in the midst of the hail, very severe, such as had not been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. The hail struck all that was in the land, throughout all the land of Egypt, both man and beast. The hail also struck every plant of the field, and shattered every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the sons of Israel were, there was no hail.
So the hail comes down. It basically destroys, just like God said, destroys everything in its path. What's interesting is there was fire with it. Okay, that is not natural. Okay, when you have hail with fire, it is a sign of things to come, because we're going to see that again at some point. Hopefully we're not here when that happens.
Let me go back to it. Fire ran down from heaven or from the sky. That could very well be just lightning, because lightning
Yeah, because mine says
creates
lightning.
thunder.
Lightning flash down to the ground.
It could be.
But it's a form of fire.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's very possible.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say, I believe it's lightning, and I think that, even the people that try to explain away through natural events the things that happen here, well, I mean, God made nature. Why can't he use it and direct it how he wants to? That doesn't make it any less miraculous to me. But it was specific to that area. That you can't deny. You could dig that stuff up and you could see that something happened back then. I don't know.
But who's to say he didn't mix sulfur with it all? I mean, he's rained down sulfur before with fire. So it could be either way. We don't know. If we want to go the natural route, I'm perfectly fine with that, because God, like you said, he can do that. If God wanted to make it a little more outside of nature to make sure that they understood who he was, I could see the sulfur route. And you have these fireballs coming down out of heaven that are hail. That would scare the living what out of me if I see that coming down.
Well, it's also a very rare occurrence in that land as well.
What's that?
Lightning and hail.
Hail and hail, oh.
So it's extremely rare. Like even to this day, they probably have it like a possibility of 2 times a year. And so back then they were saying it's even less frequent. So imagine, it's kind of like when rain fell the first time and you're like, whoa.
What?
So the hail would have been in that magnitude, something they had never seen or experienced. So just the sheer, shock of it coming, in addition to the damage, would have been eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do find it interesting that some people did actually go and save their cattle, because this is a big change in them. For them to take their livestock and move it and protect it because of this warning kind of shows their change of their gods. This was a spiritual thing. They were losing trust in their gods. So those walls were being broken down with the people. Because we're going to kind of see the people come back and go, hey, when is this going to, how long are we going to keep doing this? Okay?
I think it's a really strong illustration of faith without works is dead. See, God gave his word, and those who believed had to do something with it. They had to bring the animals in. You could say, oh, I totally believed God, but I left the animals out. Well, what good is that? It's an illustration of faith without works is dead.
Absolutely. That's good. And the last thing I'll say about this, the fire, the lightning, all of those are symbols of God's presence. Anytime you see God around, like sitting on his throne, you go through Ezekiel, you go through Revelation, you see the lightning around him, there's fire associated with God. These are all signs of God's presence through here. You know, and this whole presence of God is moving in, and then all of a sudden we're going to see this darkness come through. It is unlike anything they've ever seen before. But we'll get to that one here. We may not make it. Anyway, so let me finish this chapter. We're going to read 27, and it's from 27 on. So let me read. The Pharaoh then sent and called for Moses and Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. Yahweh is the righteous one, and I and my people are the wicked ones. Entreat Yahweh, for God's thunder and hail are too much. And I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. And Moses said to him, as soon as I go out of the city, I will spread out my hands to Yahweh. The thunder will cease, and there will be no hail no longer, that you may know that the earth is Yahweh's. But as for you and your servants, I know that you do not yet fear Yahweh God. Now the flax and the barley were struck down, but the barley was in the ear and the flax was in bud. But the wheat and the spelt were not struck down, for they are late ripening. And Moses went out to the city from Pharaoh and spread out his hands to Yahweh. And the thunder and the hail ceased, and the rain no longer poured on the earth. But Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunder had ceased. So he sinned again and hardened his heart with firmness, he and his servants. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened with strength, and he did not let the sons of Israel go, just as Yahweh had spoken by the hand of Moses. How quickly we forget. Okay, once things kind of start getting better, we go to Yahweh in times of crisis, but then when that crisis is over, how soon do we quickly forget and go back to our own ways?
Children of Israel did that constantly in the wilderness.
Oh, yeah. This is a natural thing that we need to keep in it. You can't get mad at Pharaoh or upset because we do the same thing. Okay? So you can't go, good night, man. That guy, it's like, no, you better point fingers at yourself too when you do this. Okay? Anything else in that last section that kind of struck out to you?
One of the things that sticks out to me through this whole thing is that God is actually showing great mercy on Egypt. We think because these horrible things are coming on them, maybe this is a little bit cruel or harsh, but these people are so lost, and God, the true God, the Most High, is the only form of salvation for them. So he is breaking down all their gods. This is a form of mercy to them, and then we're starting to see Egyptians believe, because some of them put their livestock away. When we look at the horrors that are coming in the 7-year tribulation, people think, how could God be so unjust or so unfair or so? This is a mercy, because the world has become so lost, they need something as severe as these plagues or more to wake them up.
And there'll be.
It says when God plows the earth with his wrath, people learn righteousness.
Yeah.
I saw it in my hometown of Waco in 1953 when we had the worst tornado in the history of Texas to this day. Over 120 people killed. And the churches were packed out for about 3 weeks.
Yeah. And as we discussed last time, you know, when 9/11 happened, churches were packed out maybe for a month. And then they were right back to where they were beforehand, if not worse. 2 weeks. Oh, 2 weeks. I'm trying to give them a little credit. You know, but here's the other thing that I find very interesting. This is the first time that Pharaoh actually has some kind of he recognizes sin kind of coming as repentance. He understands that Yahweh is over things, so he says. It's not about what we say. It's about what's inside of our hearts. We can say a lot of things, But if your heart isn't changed, if your heart hasn't been given to God, there's no difference. Lip service to God is one thing. Giving your all to God is another. And Moses knew this about Pharaoh. He says, you're just paying lip service. You don't fear him.
Reminds me of a devotional we read this last week by a pastor in Winchester, Kentucky. And he said the problem with the church today is that most Christians have not had a 12-inch conversion. I thought, 12-inch conversion? Talk about it moving from the head to the heart.
That is absolutely. That is absolutely. And I think that's why there's going to be a lot of people who think they're Christians that are going to be saved in the end times.
That's what I always say about the second coming is that you ask Christians if they believe it, and they say yes, but that's intellectual. It doesn't have any impact on their lives until it moves to their heart.
That's exactly right.
Then they start living like Jesus is coming anymore.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I always think this term that we use about do you believe in God? What a horrible question, because that is very misleading. You know who else believes in God?
The devil.
Devil and demons. So how do you distinguish between the two?
Trust.
Yeah, it's through trust. You know what? Your actions will show what you believe. Faith without works is dead. So works doesn't save you, but works is an evidence of what has transpired inside of you.
Right.
So all of your desires and why you do things and how you do things, why do you give to the church? What's inside of you? Do you do it because it's just what I do? Or do you do it because it's in gratitude of what God has done for you? Why do you get involved in the church? Am I doing it because I want to be elevated and I want to see other people see me for doing my own work? Or are you doing it because that's what God wants you to do and you're doing it to please God? Everything that we do should be coming from our heart, not just because we want the good boy kind of attitude. Because that's what was going on kind of here with Pharaoh. And I'm trying to personalize it so that way we can say, hey, we're just like him. Okay? Because faith in God is what we ought to do. Do you have faith in God? Not do you believe in God? And is he your Lord? Is he your king? Do you serve him? So, anyway, moving on. So after this pleading, he goes and stops. After they just saw this huge, just destruction across his land, he still hardens his heart and is not willing to let up.
It's kind of funny. Moses says, I'll do this, but I know you don't really believe. I'll stop it, but I know you don't believe.
Well, yeah, it is. It's funny because he goes, we're just going to go to the next one. so get ready. So that was the sky goddess. Here's the locust god. We're not there yet. I don't want to get to that one. Because that's an interesting one. So, but it was the sky goddess, the one that was in control of all things, and this is how they protect the whole thing. They bring the rain. They're there for their crops. It's wild, but this is what they believe. This is things that they have found in what they worship. Okay.
And I think too, if I could just say, there's a very real spiritual battle going on here. So yes, he's seeing this with his eyes, but there's demonic influence here.
Oh, big time.
Very strongly that is speaking to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh's going to see this stuff, but the influence, the spiritual influence, demonically is immediately counteracting that and attacking him and everyone else. They're so deceived by these gods and this false religion, and the enemy's not going to just sit down and say, okay, God, do your thing,
Yeah.
So
No, you're right.
very real spiritual battle there.
And it is a very spiritual battle. And one of the things that I have really enjoyed kind of opening my understanding to is more of the spiritual realm. These gods that they are worshiping are demonic. They have not gone away. These gods that they're still worshiping, whatever they look like, however that realm is, they're still active today. They're over this country. That's why I think this whole abortion thing is because of what a demonic force has gone through and put, because they used to sacrifice babies back in the day. That act is still going on today. It just looks a little different. They're not putting them up on altars. They're taking care of it in the womb. Okay? We're worshiping nature. That is the same thing as another, something that happened in the past. These ideas that we are worshiping and doing things in our nature in U.S. and in the world today are nothing new. They're just changing how it's going about and being done. So what we're worshiping is actually demonic. This whole save the earth, save this thing, okay, that is demonic.
Worshiping the creation
rather than the creator. Okay? Witchcraft goes in a part of nature. It just changes and makes it a little more subtle. Okay? So all the things that are happening and the Bible's very clear, there is nothing new under the sun. All it is a repeat of things that have always happened. And the same thing in the demonic realm. They're just clever of ways of wrapping it in a new package and making it look good. So that's why I think it's real important we need to understand the Old Testament and understand how the enemy works, because we can see it very clearly in the future when he comes about. Okay? And we're seeing that right here.